welcome to the airport users business, our airport users meeting. We appreciate everybody coming out. I think this is probably among the largest groups of people we've had in this hangar, so it's nice to see the response of people who are interested in the future of our airport. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our City of Lincoln manager. It'd be Sean Scully. I think you want to start, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so Sean's going to come up and start the thing.
Okay. Good morning.
Morning.
So as he said, I'm Sean. I'm city manager here. This is day 700-ish for me, and it feels like day 7,000-ish. I haven't got a chance to speak to this group. I've met a lot of you, and hopefully the rest of you will get a chance to meet at some point soon. We were invited to attend and also wanted to attend EAAs, and we'd like to try to make this a fairly regular visit, as often as you'd like us to show up and kind of keep you updated. When I was hired here, I was hired, I think, for a number of reasons. One of the things that the city council said when I was brought on board was that look, we have an airport and we view it as an asset, but we don't pay nearly enough attention to it. You probably all are aware that there has been some traditional financial difficulties in our airport fund that we don't need to go into all of the detail of, but that needed some attention and treatment. And so the first 6 months for me was really trying to wrap my head around it. And the next 6 months was trying to think about ways to sort of slowly but surely dig ourselves out of a pretty significant hole. And I'm happy to report that the enterprise fund as of this budget year is finally in a net positive position if you don't include a significant debt load that we're carrying. But from just a purely operational standpoint, we are just barely in the net positive this budget year, and it's tracking to look much better. So we're going to talk about today is just sort of a potpourri of different updates for you, and then certainly want to hear, I know everybody has feedback, and we may not get to all of it, but this won't be the last time you see me, I hope. And one of the things before I get into the presentation, I just kind of wanted to address that was brought to me right before the meeting is one of the frustrations for those of you who've been out here a long time is that consistency in leadership at the City of Lincoln has not been great for a long time. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But one of the reasons in my field is that the average lifespan of the city manager at any given jurisdiction is roughly 5 years. And in the last couple of years, that's actually reduced to 3.5. And it's not always because of the community. Many times it's because of the individual. They want to move on to something else or they get tired. I've committed to the city council that I am here as long as they will have me. So part of the problem that we've dealt with in many areas of the city is simply just consistency. You can't really get things done in a couple of years. You need a long time to achieve change. And if you, there's a couple police chiefs in the room, so you might have heard this analogy. It's sort of like if you want to turn around a massive warship, you don't turn it around like a bug. It takes a while to turn it around. And so that's sort of what we're trying to do. And so today, we wanted to talk, just kind of meet and greet with those of us. We've got Matt here. He's our public works director. Matt came on, I think I hired Matt, a year ago? Yeah, about a year ago. We've got Rich, everybody knows Rich, who works out here at the airport. One, Scott Boynton, who also helps out here, is sick today. One of our engineers, we didn't ask to attend because Matt himself is an engineer, and so he'll cover that role today. We're going to talk a little bit about code enforcement because we've been trying to respond to a series of things that have been plaguing the airport for a really long time. And it's not, and we're going to talk a little bit about the fact that it's not intended to be heavy-handed or, like we're the Third Reich walking in here telling you what to do. This is intended to address things that have been plaguing and probably annoying many of you for a lot of years. And one example I'm sure everybody would laugh at is the boat that was here for a long time, which I just thought was hilarious. There was a boat sitting at an airport. And then we're going to talk a little bit about capital improvement projects. We have a number of them that are coming up out here, and both of those, some of them are large scale projects like the Runway rehabilitation project, and others are smaller scale things like some of the crack seal work that you've seen in the last year and more that we have coming. And fuel truck update, we have some new infrastructure and vehicles that we've been able to get to raise the bar here a little bit. I'll talk a little bit about the Hangar project that's working now, and then after that, anybody that wants to discuss whatever, we'll have some time to do that. The code enforcement function in Lincoln is run under the city attorney's wing. And so she, and that's citywide. So it's everything from, hey, my neighbor has 47 chickens in their backyard, to hoarders' homes, to unsafe building conditions, to airport issues. So it's a lot of work, and we have 2 code enforcement officers for the entire community. So we have to try to figure out a way to spread those resources over a pretty large geographic area. They clear a lot of cases every month. And to be frank, I think for a long time, they just didn't prioritize the airport. And so we're changing that, and have been. And so we're trying our best to address some of the things that we see as being, that we hear the most about from airport folks. So for example, abandoned vehicles, planes that clearly are not going to fly and haven't flown in a long time that are sort of abandoned out here, hangars that are being used for purposes that are not aviation related or mostly aviation related, life safety things that come up from time to time. So this little form here is an example of sort of a little notice that we send. And the intent of code enforcement, just so it's clear, is not to fine or you're not going to get, at least initially, you're not going to get a nastogram or a lawsuit or a service processor coming to your hangar from the city attorney. What you'll probably get is something like this, and it'll circle whatever it is that they see is needing to be addressed. It'll be signed by whoever inspected it, and the intent is compliance. So, our goal in every code enforcement here or anywhere else is to just make someone aware of the issue, and hopefully they can help solve it, and then we close it and we move on. It's that simple. It's not intended to be punitive. It's just intended to kind of keep things to a certain standard. So, we don't need to go through all of them, but you can, I think on the very last page of the handout we gave, you can see sort of an example of some of the things that, kind of would be common ones, illegal storage of oil or fuel, illicit discharge, overloaded electrical circuits, things like that, we really would be concerned about if they're not addressed, could put someone else at risk.
Quick question.
Bruce.
Will we be available, will we be able to be present when we do the inspection?
Absolutely. In fact, we prefer that. So the way it'll work is, like, let's say that the issue, whatever the issue is, because here's the deal. We having 2 code enforcement people, we have to run it as a reactive department a little bit, meaning unlike the police department, who have staff that can go out and try to actively find things that might be illegal, it's kind of tough to do that with 2 folks. So what we do is we depend on the community out there and in here to tell us, hey, Bob down the street is, running a dance club out of his hangar, and we think that's inappropriate, and so maybe you should go look into that. 2 things about that. One is, if you choose to call and let us know about that, your complaint is confidential. It will never be shared who made it. Now, what we always say with like a neighborhood dispute is, if you're complaining to your neighbor for years that their fence is 6 feet or too tall, and you call in to complain, well, they're probably going to make an assumption that it was likely you that called, right? But we don't tell them anything. We simply say, hey, we made aware of an issue and we need to get it solved. So we do, and we take that super, super seriously. The only difference to that is things that are just absolutely obvious to us. So take the boat, for example, or a decrepit plane that's not ever going to probably fly again. Those things are just there for us to see, and so we can address those as we see them. As it relates to things inside hangars, that's much more difficult, and so we really do sort of depend on the community to help police themselves a little bit. so that, you know, no one's taking advantage of everybody else. Because if you think about it, you're all paying to be here. And if someone else is paying to be here as well and they're not using it for its intended purpose, the question I get from a lot of folks is, why do you care what someone does in their hangar if it's not aviation related? And then the answer I give is, I personally don't care, but the airport cares, because if you're not into aviation and you're not flying a plane periodically, that means you're probably not buying fuel, you're probably not contributing to the airport at all, and that means that the financial condition of the airport is going to slowly disintegrate over time. So it's important for us, it's in the city and airport's advantage to make sure that most, if not all, of the people out here are true, you know, aviation professionals that want to, you know, participate in this. Because if you think about an airport, it's really kind of like a co-op. Everybody contributes a little bit so that you can all, you know, participate in aviation. And when that stops happening and it becomes a storage yard, that's a problem. Because we can't afford to do the projects that actually allow people to fly out here. So that's sort of low level to high level. So Matt's going to come up here and talk about some of the CIPs. We have an update. The big one that everybody, of course, wants to know about is the Runway rehabilitation project, which is super badly needed, as you know. We have some preliminarily disappointing news about what the FAA has told us about the timing of the funding for that project. Matt's going to go into detail about it, but suffice to say that project, as of a few years ago, was valued at about $10 million. Today, probably more like 12. And the way that FAA funding works, if you don't know, is that they typically pay for about 90% of the project, and the local airport has to come up with 10% to match. So somewhere between $1 million or $1.2 million is the nut that we have to make to be able to make this project work. If you want to know what the surplus was in the airport this current budget year, it was $100,000. So we'd have to save for quite a while to be able to get that at current revenue levels, which is why we're spending a lot of time trying to figure out ways to lease new dirt and find some new business opportunities. Don't necessarily require us to put out a bunch of capital, but give the private sector an opportunity to get into the airport and build a hangar that might contribute to fuel sales, et cetera. So Matt, why don't you come up and talk a little bit about CIPs, and I'll be back in a minute.
Good morning, my name is Matthew Medill. I'm the Public Works Director. Public Works is a department that services the community in providing solid waste service. We manage and operate the water system, the wastewater system. We do participate in a JPA with the newly formed LISWA, the Lincoln and SMD1 wastewater treatment plant, which is down on Fidament Road. So we have a lot of responsibilities. The airport is one of those. So we do have a team, and that's mostly Scott Boynton, who's the maintenance services manager. A lot of you will see him around, and Rich is our primary maintenance worker out here at the airport, and he's serves in a pretty broad capacity in, you know, fueling. I believe he helps fuel jets and airplanes, and you see him out here mowing, and there's a whole lot of responsibilities out here. And we're definitely, and during the open forum portion of the meeting, we're definitely wanting to hear some feedback from the airport users on how things are going, if there's any recommendations or suggestions. So Roland Neufeld, he's our senior engineer. He works over in City Hall. He's the primary engineer facilitating the CIP projects. And he really does a good job. And he works with Brandley Engineering. And they were on a 5-year contract with the city to prepare our CIP and coordinate with FAA. And we have recently extended that. I don't believe his new 5-year term has started, but we did do an open RFP. I believe we had 2 or 3 applicants. Roland and I went through those, and we ended up selecting Brandley again. They're highly qualified and very familiar with the airport. So we do have several CIP projects, and what Sean had mentioned, and it seems to be a common theme since I've been here, and it's been a year, but it's our funding's been delayed. And it first started, the runway design was supposed to start in 2024, and it was pushed to 2025 with construction funding 2 years after that. About within the last 6 weeks, we were notified that the 2025 funding level won't support the project again, and it's been suggested they're postponing the funding to 2026 for design and 2028 for construction. Roland's going to email back the FAA airport district office asking if we can at least keep the, I believe it's $475,000 for the design portion, to keep that on track, and then at least have a shelf-ready project if another project in their program is not delivered. So we're going to push back a little bit on that. Also, they have not approved for funding the oil water separators you'll see on the screen in green. So we're gonna ask again if we can get some level of funding, so we can do a project this year. So a couple of the other projects further out that you'll see on the screen is the reconstruct taxiways and then Flightline Drive. But we're taking one bite at the elephant at the time, and that's kind of where we're at. And I think in one of the slides, let's see. Yeah, I'm sorry, I apologize for not sorting this sequentially, but that's just kind of a rough summary. And you'll see in one of the handouts, the second to last page, there's more of a description of the status of each of these projects. One project that is ongoing and we're expecting the results is that pavement management plan. That's ongoing, and I believe we're going to get the results sometime around summertime. But if you've seen them out there, I believe they've been doing some analysis and site surveying out here for that. So we're really interested in seeing that pavement management status. And one of the things that we did on a limited basis was, I believe we did some crack sealing around the fueling station, and this year we do plan to do some more crack sealing. The cracks are pretty significant, and they used a lot more crack seal material than we anticipated, so we didn't get as big of an area, but we are going to continue to do that annually. And here's just some frequently asked questions just about how the funding works, and everyone has a packet, you can read through it. But one of the things that I think, and Roland put these notes together, is the FAA funding's for a specific purpose. It's for like airport function, not for revenue generating projects. So hangar maintenance and those types of things are not going to be FAA funded. And then Rich could probably speak better to this than I can, but we had some really old trucks, and I think one of them didn't have air conditioning, which wasn't fun. But this year we renewed the fuel purchase contract with Epic, and we built in the lease of 2 new trucks. So you'll see we have 2 new trucks out here that will be CARB compliant and compliant with the California Air Resources Board's regulations. And then T-Hangar development, I think Sean wants to speak to this.
Yep. So the only way out of, the only way to make the airport, at least from my perspective, into a slightly more vibrant place that has better infrastructure and services for all of you is to find a way to change it financially. There's 2 ways to do that. You charge more to existing users, and I'll ask you to raise your hand if you're interested in that. Okay, got it, thank you. Don't put your hands up too fast. Or you use the asset you have available, which is dirt and available space. So as you might know, years and years ago, and on a regular basis actually, the city does this airport layout plan that we send to the FAA, and they give us comments and they give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And it's supposed to basically master plan essentially the full build out of the airport decades into the future. So there are pre-approved areas that are active and live for new hangar builds, whether they be T-hangars, whether they be box hangars, and even larger facilities. There's areas that are identified for fixed base operator. And when I got here and started meeting with a couple of folks from the airport, it was really interesting. And there's a lot more to do. I've learned that leasing airport ground is incredibly complex and difficult. And so we did, as a sort of a test run, we did one ground lease, the first one, I believe, in 25 years, right up here, kind of in that area along Flightline Drive, about a parcel over from where Rich's office is there. And that lease has been sold to another individual who I understand is intending on getting started on construction this year for a new hangar there. So that was just sort of our test run. But what I learned was it's not a demand problem. It's almost, we have to be a little bit picky and choosy about it, because what we've learned is once the word got around that we were interested in entertaining new land leases, my phone and email was overwhelmed. And what I learned was, I'd say 3/4 of those solicitations were from nobody around here. They were from speculators that are in the airport business that found out, hey, there's an opportunity here, contractors that saw it as a way to make a quick buck. And so we sort of pulled back a teeny little bit and we said, look, we're going to focus on those individuals, excuse me, that are already lessees or hangar owners out here at the airport, or business owners that are already out here at the airport first. Make sure that we could get most of those desires for expansion satisfied. And then maybe in the future, we'll look on a little bit more wide scale. So status update is there are 2 more box hangar leases that I'm in the middle of working on. One of them I'm almost done with, and then there's one more that I expect to have done in the next month or 2. And then beyond that, the city council said, okay, that's it for now. And by the way, those individuals are here at the airport. They're not from somewhere else. And then separately, the really cool thing that's happened that had become defunct for a really long time here in Lincoln was that the city council reestablished an airport committee. And there's one person here that's on it. Yeah, there she is. But it has a really great group of folks that are on it. They're all folks that are out here at the airport. Byron's on it, and a number of others. And then we have a lot of folks. Bruce attends a lot. Scott attends a lot. But what I would say is that if you want to know what's going on at the airport, or if you have a gripe, or you see something that should be solved and you don't know why it hasn't been, please come to that meeting. We do them almost monthly, unless we need to cancel for some reason. But it's at City Hall. Typically, it's at what do we usually do? 10 o'clock. Yeah. Third Wednesdays at 10 o'clock. And there's an opportunity, kind of like here, where anybody can speak on whatever issue they want. Then usually we have a list of things that we want to talk about. We talk about everything. So what do we do about lease rates? What do we do about fuel? What do we do about our pavement conditions? We've had discussions about what does Lincoln look like longer term into the future? At what point does this place need a tower? Well, what's really interesting is that I've learned this about aviation, is that one person has an idea and 5 other people disagree with it, and then 5 other people disagree with them, and so on and so on, right? So it's good to see you're all aligned on everything here. But good news is that one of the first things the airport committee really wanted to get accomplished was, and this was their opinion, was that we have so many tie downs out there that have been, a lot of them are folks that have been waiting for a T hangar for a really, really long time. What's your list right now, Rich?
My list is over 200 right now.
Over 200, right? So, and that's the ones that we know are interested. You probably could add a lot more to that of ones that, the other thing he's noticed is sometimes we'll get people that aren't even out here and they just need a hangar somewhere. So they'll just get on the list. And it may be that they already got a hangar in Auburn or somewhere else and they're still on the list here. So what we're trying to do moving forward is create some sort of small subscription thing where if you want to stay on the list, it's going to cost you $50 or something like that, so that we don't have people getting on the list at 87 airports and never coming off the list. It doesn't serve the people here. And maybe even some preference to those folks that are already tied down here that have been waiting forever to get into a TA. So when we talked about how can we do kind of a larger scale, more competitive process for a larger scale hangar build project, it was decided by the committee that instead of doing something that flooded the marketplace, the committee decided, you know what, we know we need T hangars, we know they're in high demand, so let's just start with a reasonably sized project for just T hangars. Let's have it, let's see it build, let's see it be successful, and then we can go for something a little bit more large scale and and transformational. And so that RFP closed probably about maybe 8 weeks ago, and committees had their review, and then we kind of took a lull over the holidays where we're going to be doing some interviews coming up here, and then an award at some point. And you can see in your packet that these, for the sake of just this presentation, this is how the airport layout plan is set up. But these box hangars may or may not be part of the approvals, but these 3 T hangar smaller boxes are certainly part of it at this moment and expandable, which we see it as serving a couple purposes. One is meeting the demand of what folks need out here, and then 2 is we've done some calculations, some sort of assumptions about if you rent a T hangar, how much can you assume that the average recreational pilot is going to purchase in terms of fuel, and what does that mean for the budget moving forward? So we're not in the business of making a bunch of revenue on leasing ground. There just isn't that much money to be made. The average lease rate for dirt on airports, our rate here for a long time was roughly 3.5 to 4 cents a square foot. If you look elsewhere, you could go, it gets as high as about 10 to 11 cents a square foot, and we're roughly the lowest. So we're in the middle of kind of reevaluating that. We want to be lower, but right in the middle, because we recognize that even if you lease out a couple 100,000 square feet, it doesn't get you very much in terms of revenue. Fuel is where it's at. And so you have to add to the amount of people purchasing it. It's kind of like running a gas station. I was telling somebody earlier that I'm sure gas or fuel prices will come up at some point, but my father-in-law owned a couple of 7-Elevens, and I didn't know anything about that. One day I asked him, how do you decide what the fuel is? Does 7-Eleven call you and tell you have to price it at this? He goes, no, you just call down the street and see what everybody else is charging, and then you decide, I'll be $1 or a couple cents cheaper or a couple cents more. And it actually works very similarly with how we price fuel here. So there's the wholesale price, and we'd like to get a certain margin, but a lot of it depends on what our competitors are doing around here. So long story short, this year our goal is that you start to see some private hangar build along Flightline, as well as some of these T hangar locations. And the idea we have, and we actually wrote it into the RFP, there's some preference given to leasing those spaces to folks that are already in tie-down spots out here, or perhaps you're getting booted from a sublease you have elsewhere and you need a home. Well, they'll have one. So that's kind of where that's at the moment. And then provided that's successful, then we're going to keep it going until the demand is not there, which may not ever happen. Okay. Oh, and then here we are. So there's a whole lot more we could talk about, but we didn't really know how much time you wanted us to bore you. So we can take questions, gripes, complaints. You want to throw stuff? Throw stuff, that's fine. We'll start with Bruce, and then we'll go here, here, and here.
First off, in the 10 years I've been here, we've been trying to see like the redheaded stepchild.
Yeah.
It's nice to see you out. We're really very nice.
Thank you. Well, the only person in this room that we really see as a redheaded stepchild is you, Bruce. So I'm just kidding.
I mean, all the work my best people.
You're very shy.
And as I talked to you earlier, changing management and so forth, we kind of get lost in the shelf.
Yep.
My request, pretty simple, we would love to have a porta-potty right behind this hangar for the use of the people that are there.
Okay, I'll get back to you right now. No. Next question. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. I think here's the deal. For all of the things you bring up today, we're gonna try to keep a list of them, and I'm probably gonna need your video, Scott, wherever you are. But I will commit that within 2 weeks, we'll get written responses back or a phone call or whatever to each and every single one. And the ones, and I guess the only thing I'd ask in return is that if I tell you, hey, look, I can't see a way that I can manage that financially, it doesn't mean that I don't think it should be done. It just means that I don't think it can be done today. But fair point, and you deserve an answer, and that's sort of why I'm here.
That's wonderful.
Yep. Okay, here. Yes, sir.
Specific to the hangars on the south end of the airfield,
Yeah.
what is the ground lease on that, and when is that going to revert back to the city? Or never back to the city?
So you mean the row on the very south side? I'll have to go look. I don't know it off the top of my head. I can tell you that there's a number of leases along Flightline that were all done roughly in the same period of time in the late 80s. Sorry, go ahead, Richard.
I think it's 126 then.
Yeah, so that would line up. That lines up with a number. There's a number of ones that are along Flightline that all expire in 2026. Some of them we expect will revert back to the city. Some of them we've already had conversations about extensions or new folks that want to come in and purchase them. So it kind of just depends. But for those ones on the south end, it's 2026. And I'll be honest with you, as I talk to other, I've gotten really into learning a lot about airports and speaking to other actual professional airport managers, not me. What the solid feedback I've got from all of them has been never, ever, ever build a city hangar again, ever. Lease the dirt, let someone else's capital build it, focus on fuel. So to answer your question, let's say it's 2026, we would be looking for somebody to come in and acquire that because we don't want the maintenance responsibilities and the upkeep, because if you think about it, it costs us a lot more to do that than it would a private individual. And if it costs us a lot more, it means it costs you a lot more. So that's where it comes from. Okay, I'm going to go here, and then we'll circle around.
The property that's in the gazebo, I think you said you've already, lease on that part of that property, that's the gazebo, that right?
Yeah, so he asked about the property. So he asked about the property next to the gazebo and that there's a lease there.
So the question I have is, are you talking to anybody about coming in and building an FBO?
Yes. So the property right next to the gazebo, as Rich has pointed out to me, is our best spot. It's the one that we have to be the most careful with. You can only get it right one time, right? So you may see leases signed and things build, north of that. That's where some of the newer leases are kind of looking. We've pretty much told almost everybody that's talked to us about that particular location, yes, we want to do something there, but not now, because that's that's the spot for an FBO, right? And it may swallow up Rich's office to include that area. Don't know yet. We'll see in the future. But certainly the goal is, at some point in the future to have an FBO. And there have been a number of FBOs that have approached us and said, hey, we're interested. The city council and I think even the airport committee is really interested in not seeing it just be a traditional FBO. They want to see something that's blended in with a restaurant for folks to eat and something more than just an administrative office that runs some of the airport operations. Back, I think you were next. Yeah.
Two things. One is, have you given any consideration to your city facility here in the north? You've got a lot of square footage you can rent out.
Yeah.
You've also got through the fence access. So if you want to rent that out, I had my business here a couple years back. I would love to rent that space from you. And I'm sure there's a lot of other businesses that would love to do that, bring you revenue.
Yeah.
Second thing is, if you put a restaurant here, you got people flying in and they're buying gas. So
Yep.
a restaurant is a huge anchor for you to sell fuel.
Yep.
That's it.
I agree with all that. So if you didn't hear, he asked about our public works yard that's to the north of the airport. Do we use all of that space? Is it available for lease? Give me a call. What I'll tell you is that we periodically have people that are interested in it. We do use some of the warehouse space. There's a police evidence area that's secured there, and Public Works uses it for a lot of different equipment, heavy duty stuff. But there is availability, and we're open to any ideas. Because if you ever go look through that building, I kind of call it the boneyard. because it really is just kind of storage for us. And so if there's a higher and better use that benefits the airport and the city, we're always open to those kind of opportunities. The second thing he mentioned was that if you are able to get a restaurant, people fly in, they buy fuel, they fly out. Personally, there's two airports that I really love to go eat at, Napa, and my wife has a grandmother down in Santa Maria, and so we go to that one, and you can see it all the time there. People flying in, grabbing what do they call it, the $100 hamburger? Yeah, 150, oh, probably 200 now. Yeah. Yep. Okay, so I think here, in the blue jacket.
Yeah, I have a comment and a question on the voting portion. I'm not able, I have a hangar there, I'm not able to be here every 3 days or 72 hours at a time.
Yeah.
If I do, but other times I don't. You folks have my contact number since I have a hangar here. If I get one of you notices posted on my door and my lock is cut out and left open for this riprap period.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I locked my truck before I came in. So.
Is your inspection going to be done on the wholesale and stuff street through here, or just on a case like police, hey, this guy is storing gasoline, flammable, or a big club in his hangar. I want to plan basis for a wholesale security.
Yeah, so if you didn't hear, his question was, the 72-hour notice, what if you're not close and you can't be here in 72 hours? The 72-hour notice is, that form is developed not really so much for the airport, it's for locals in town that have a problem where they live there, so it's 72 hours is not a problem. In this case, you won't just get something plastered on the front of your hangar door. We'll mail it to you, someone will give you a call. If you say, hey, I'm in Tahiti this week, I can't be there till next week, that's fine. We're not, like I said, we're not the Gestapo knocking down doors. We just want the opportunity to, at some point, meet you out here so that we can go in and address whatever the issue is. So that won't happen. And if it does happen, give us a call. But that's not typically how it works. We save so much time, effort, and money if we could just meet with the person and say, hey, here's the issue. And 99% of the time, they're like, oh, I didn't even know. Yeah, I'll take care of that. So absolutely. And then, what was the second half? I'm so sorry. Yeah, we've talked about that. Whether we were just going to only be on a complaint basis or we're going to do just a day where we do inspections, everybody opens up and we go take a look. I'm sort of agnostic about that. I mean, it would be useful to us certainly to have like an inspection day where we come out and just sort of address all of the issues all at once. But coordinating with all of your schedules to be able to do that on a certain Saturday is pretty difficult. So we're trying to address the worst offenders first, and then little piddly stuff we get to down the road.
You talked with Christine, it would be really difficult to get our staff enough time to move.
Yeah, and it would be really tough for us to be able to get into all of the facilities out here in 1 or even 2 days. So I think for now it's probably going to be basically a complaint basis, which works because you know who you are out there. There are plenty of folks that are willing to say what's not right. Okay, so I'm going this way, Mr. Blue Jacket.
Two things. Can we get the VASI lights working on one side? And then the second thing, can we get a windsock on the approach end of 1.5? A windsock.
Windsock and the lights on both on 1.5. Yes, we've got that's on the list. That's on the list. We'll add that to the list of things to do.
You can get it on Amazon.
Priority.
Yeah.
A lot of these hangars were owned by a corporation, and they were voted back to the city a few years ago.
Yep.
Is there any interest, because now the cities have to maintain these hangars?
Yep.
Is there any interest in selling those?
Yes.
To people that own them or that are in them now? And if so, how do you go about doing that?
I'm gonna, before we're done today, I will give everybody out my email, Matt's email, and then you already have Rich's info. But if you're interested in that, please contact us, because the point you just made is actually right. What he's asked is, a lot of the hangars out here were owned by a corporation, the lease expired, and then the hangar reverted back to the city's ownership. We would very much be interested in sale of that or lease of that out to somebody that would be interested, whether it be the tenant that's already in it or somebody else. So please contact us if that's something you're interested in. I want to make sure. Okay, we'll go here.
Two parts.
Yeah.
I mentioned, we joked on having a tower, because your having public image on the side of the airport is incredibly important. And we're looking at like a Watsonville type event. I'm not sure you guys know what happened there. Two thin arrows. And I'm sure all of you here have had, that one close call at Lincoln when you come in, because there's 20 people in paddle. This is a busy airport, and we really should, for safety's sake, have on the mindset that we need a tower. Because if we don't, we're gonna have a minute. It's just gonna happen. And the public image of this airport will be shot in the sand. Second thing is, the airport property line extends really far after the opposite side of the runway.
Yep.
There's a huge revenue generating prospect of building hangar homes. I know a couple corporations have approached the city of Lincoln about building hangar homes. There's a huge property over there.
Yep.
Yeah, I know the skydive jump company that moved over there, they said, no, we're not gonna let you taxi your plane over to the hangar, even though there used to be a taxiway there, and we just put a fence right through it. And then on the other side of the road, there's already homes. So zoning wise, it couldn't be that much more difficult if you extended the property line from the airport use / commercial to property private ownership development.
Yep. Yeah. So those are more comments and questions. Yeah. Well, first off, so we're just going to come up and address the second half.
First and second.
Oh, go ahead.
Let me get my notes.
You guys know this guy.
Okay, let's see. Okay, as your question for the tower. So right now we have 94,000 movements a year at the airport, touch and goes. To even have a tower considered, you have to have over 100,000.
So how are you collecting that down?
That is collected. It's FAA actually collects a lot of the data, so we get it from their website, and that comes. So you have to be 100,000 plus to actually get that. So we're not that close. We're at 94,000. So a couple more people buy airplanes, or they come out all the time and do touch and goes, will be fine. And as for your question about the building across the way, yeah, that would be awesome. I always advocated for us to be able to go cut across, and even on the other side where there's power parachutes adjacent to that, we can have hangars. But here's the problem: the environmental impact. There are vernal pools galore out there. The money to have that vernal pool moved to a different location, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So now you're in a deficit of $100,000 to $200,000 before you even put down a piece of concrete. And that is the deterrent. No one wants to do that. So unfortunately, I don't see that getting any better in the future. It depends on who the president is. But right now, as it is, environmental, it's just never going to happen, especially with all the biologists. If you ever see them, they're out there in droves. And there's satellite imagery. I mean, one time a funny story, I sunk my tractor and made a hole in it and rolled the hole. 2 months later, it's a vernal pool and it's on the registry. So it happens just like that. It wasn't natural, it was me. If I would have known better, I would have backfilled it, but it was too late. So that's how it goes. So, all right, so hopefully that answers that question.
But, so that said,
The developer approached you and said, hey, here's $20 million to go hangar home.
here's
Yeah, we're ready to pay it, no worries.
Yeah, so like my philosophy is, and this goes for the hangars on this side that are going to build, there are going to be impacts and costs that exist to develop that. That's why, a few minutes ago I said, we're out of that business. So if somebody's interested and has the resources that's willing to make that investment, we're all for it. It's not a policy decision for us not to do it. And so, like I said, if you have folks that approach you that, really want to get into that business, have them call us. I can't speak for why for some time period, and it's not certainly isn't rich, but why previous administrations were not interested in it, in business opportunities, but we are now. So, the only thing I can tell you is that if we're able to get the first lease done in 25 years, that's at least one little nugget that we're willing to entertain options and go for it. So please send them my way, or Matt's way, or Rich's way. I'm going to go here and then here.
I just like to commend you because I've never seen a city manager so involved with the airport and developing a lot of funds. They get so attention to all. We're going to have big jet traffic. We're going to do international airport. It's all eyes. This is a small town So I commend you for getting these hangar projects started. One thing I'd like to add is there's a lot of backcountry off-airport type airplanes here. I was wondering, Marysville has a little grass strip just outside of their runway. I don't know if Rich can go out with his tractor in that steep area there on 1.5, maybe 1,000 feet on the dirt. Have a little dirt strip for some of us with more expensive tires that asphalt will eat up. I thought that would be a nice little grass strip you use just on the other side, on the west side of 1.5 or on the west side of 3 to kind of get that opportunity. And then fuel prices, McClellan's the cheapest fuel ever.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys can get down to the McClellan prices, but maybe think about doing maybe some fuel incentives on weekends with activities or PA in conjunction with young eagle flights, maybe lower the price. We used to do that, lower the price every month for airport day or something like that, just to attract more people in the airport.
Yeah, did everybody hear that? Do I have to repeat that? Okay, yeah, I think those are both fair points. The one on the non-paved runway, I'll have to defer to people that know about what we're allowed to do and not do, but to me it seems generally reasonable. On the fuel pricing thing, we have a bit of discretion in terms of how we determine how to price fuel. Ultimately, if I'm looking at the register of revenues and expenditures, and I notice that we bought wholesale fuel at X and we sold it just below that, you can bet that my very first very upset phone call is going to be to Rich, asking him what the hell he's doing out there. But that said, selling fuel is like selling any other commodity where bulk sale can dilute down price for everybody else. And so we'd certainly be interested in looking at that. We don't, we're not pretending that we know absolutely everything about fuel sale. We have things we can learn for sure. Okay, I'm going to go here and then there. Hey,
yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Is there an environmental impact report, a current EIR for the airport?
Yeah. There's the feds call it an EA, environmental assessment, and it is done with the airport layout plan every year, and it identifies those vernal pools primarily that Rich is talking about. Hopefully, I know this is getting recorded, so hopefully this doesn't get transmitted somewhere on a federal level, but I'm really tired. It's really difficult to get anything done, especially on airports, when you're constantly spending all of this time worrying about ferry shrimp that are somewhere out there. I've never even seen a ferry shrimp. If we spent as much money on, the homeless as we do ferry shrimp, we probably have eliminated the homeless problem at this point in California. So, and by the way, the other thing, this is how silly and dull I am. I thought, I was like, wow, ferry shrimp, I've never even seen one. Are they the kind you can eat, or whatever? Apparently, they're microscopic. You can barely even see them. But yes, there is. And Rich is right. The thing that's a bummer about it is any sort of disruption to that, especially like in this kind of weather, you just created a whole new, very expensive problem you've got to fix. And at some point, that has to be reckoned with because, when you're adding 30 to 40% to every single project for a species that essentially seems like can live anywhere that a tractor creates a small little pool, I'm not sure that it really makes sense. But what do I know?
So the EIR is available?
It's available, and we could probably shoot out a link. We update it fairly regularly, and then when a new project comes in, for example, let's say on the other side of the airport, somebody comes in with a really great opportunity to build a bunch of box hangars or jet hangars or whatever. They may have to do a little bit of a supplemental report to make sure that it's current today, but it'll save them a ton of money because they won't have to start from scratch. We've already spent a lot of that money to do it. And it's not just you, by the way. That runway, that $10, $12 million runway project, we have to do the same silly, in my opinion, overboard environmental review on literally rehabbing a runway that already exists. Makes no sense. The back.
20 years, so I really appreciate it. The first thing is, I know we're going to rebuild the runway. Have you given any consideration either to allowing takeoff and landing operations on the taxiway? The second question is, if not, have you considered talking to sister airports to get us an ability to reposition aircraft for the time the runway is closed?
Oh, do you mean during the construction project?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really tough, that's a really tough question. We've been battling, fortunately the project is not right at our doorstep, but we've spent a lot of time internally trying to think about how are we going to have half of it working so that this airport can continue to operate while they work on the other part. What I'm told by the engineers is that there will likely be at least a short period of time where we simply have no choice and that entire runway has to be shut down. We've looked into the opportunity of a temporary runway adjacent that, wouldn't be perfect, but folks that really needed to get up and get out and come back could get in. But I would say that we're gonna, before that ever moves forward, the transition plan of when the construction project is going to occur, we're gonna be here probably with all of you and then all of the other folks that are not here, trying to figure out what's the least amount of pain for that time period. Because Matt, remind me, it's a long project. It's like 8 weeks. Now 8 weeks.
That's an accelerated schedule. It should
Yeah.
be like 8 or 12 weeks.
It should be, yeah, so the project should be 12. We're gonna pay extra probably for nighttime work and other things to make sure it's done at 8. But there will be a period of time, hopefully it's 2 weeks or less, where we're gonna be dark here. I don't see a way around it unless we're able to get, we have had some conversations with the FAA about like, how do you do this at other airports that only have, one major runway? And so we're hoping that we have an alternative that people can use at least just for that 2 weeks.
Okay, the only other thing I want to mention is, just so you know, your FAA funding, any of the city employees that works to get that funding, their costs can be compensated through the grant that they receive.
Yep, we count on it. But, of course, the FAA is funny because it's kind of they pay for everything in the arrears. So you spend it first, then maybe they pay you for it.
Said private airport was my home airport.
Yeah.
15 years. They just went through the runway closure thing. You might have, they just opened the runway up, I want to say a month ago. It was down for a couple of months at least. And that's a lot busier airport than here. They've got you might want to check.
Yeah, we'll call them. Yeah.
Call them and see how they do.
Okay, that's good. That's good advice. Yeah, we'll do that.
Manager there.
Yeah.
She's an open.
And just so everybody understands, the reason why it's such a long period of time, because you look at that roadway and you think, well, geesh, why would it take that long? It's because it's not like a roadway. This roadway needs to be built so that it can withstand very heavy aircrafts landing and taking off, as you know. And so the base under it, literally they're going to demo all of it, dig way down, and essentially rebuild it from the ground up, or subterranean up, in other words. Okay, yeah.
One more.
Yeah, of course.
With the building process, there's no terms of extension of the runway length to the end zone. Because also you have more building space on that side of the runway at the end of 1-5.
Yep.
The gate line.
Yep.
Are you gonna do any proposal plan?
Yep.
For that?
Yep, so this one that the airport committee chose to focus on this time was logical because it's central in the airport and it's generally already improved, and we probably avoid most, if not all, of any kind of environmental issues. I would guess the next major airport hangar build RFP you'll see will be on the south side of the airport. It just makes sense. Yeah.
One more comment on fuel.
On what?
On fuel.
Oh, fuel.
McClellan, Jackson, other airports around here have become destinations just to get fuel. I fly down there just to get fuel. And because if I need 40 gallons of fuel, and I can save $1.40 a gallon, I'm flying somewhere. Not only do I get in some flight time and some experience, I got to save a lot of money on fuel. If you could get a reasonable, excuse my French, but if you could get a reasonable fuel price here, you could become a destination for people to come and buy fuel.
Yeah.
And that'll increase your activity, so you can get up over your 100,000. That'll, if you're buying your fuel at the right price, you can make more money.
Yeah. Yeah, so does anybody know where Gustine is?
Yeah.
Merced County. They have a little airport, right? long time ago, I worked there, and you know, it's essentially a runway with like 4 hangars or whatever. But we had a lot more flexibility to undercut fuel price there because we simply didn't have people here that were at the airport that were purchasing. There was only a handful. There was one crop duster and then like a couple other people had hangars, right? So we could do that because we weren't selling it anyway, right? Here, the difference is that the competition is a little bit more significant. You could, you know, not that far for you to fly a number of other airports right around here. So Rich and I have talked about the method by which we're evaluating and pricing fuel, and we're open, you know, to looking at alternatives. We just want to make sure, you got to imagine that when we wholesale purchase, that's a big number that comes out of the budget every year. And so we want to make sure that it won't do for us to only get a 3 or 4% margin on that, because it's really our only way to generate revenue. And so I'm not saying we're not interested in doing something a little bit different, like the idea about maybe, you know, reduced fuel price for certain airport days. That kind of stuff makes sense. But you'll probably, at least for the next year, if we do that, it's going to be fairly limited so we can test out to make sure we don't take a bath on anything like that, if that makes sense.
Just to get an idea of how many people actually do that. Stop on their way back, or if they're going to do some approaches, stop someplace where they're doing approaches and get fuel because it's cheaper. Maybe people raise their hands so you can see.
Yeah, let's see.
I'm talking.
Here's the thing, the Jet A prices, those you can be more rigid with, because the jets are coming out here, and this is the destination they have to get to. We have the runway, like, with the 100 low-end prices, that's where it affects all the guys like us, and they're gonna go fly 10 minutes away to get a $10.10 gallon gas.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So he said that the Jet A folks, that can be a little bit more rigid because it kind of is what it is. But for the low lead folks, you know, there's more flexibility, and you're able to kind of fly out and get a deal because, you know, it doesn't cost you that much to do it, just time, right?
Didn't have contracts with any of the charter operators that operate turboprops or jets in and out of Lincoln?
Not direct contracts, no. Although I'm sure you've seen it probably much more than I have. But you know, jet traffic here has increased quite a bit since the venue got going. I don't know if anybody, you probably all have seen more. Certainly, Rich has more celebrities than I have. But I was doing a tour for some folks out here. And before I leave, I also want to tell you about Across Flightline, so I don't want to forget that. But so we pull in, right? And there, a jet had touched down, and there's like 3 black SUVs that would have guys that look like CIA agents or whatever walking around. And I'm like, oh wow, who's that? And I was giving the tour, right? So the people assume I know who's flying in. I'm like, I have no idea. It was the Eagles flying in, which is pretty awesome. And if you ever have time, hop into Rich's office because he has some super awesome stories about various celebrities that have been flying in recently. But the point I wanted to make was, one of the things that Rich has pointed out that I think is true, you probably already know, is because our pilot's lounge is Spartan, to say the least, one of the things we recognize is getting a fixed base operator, or at least something that's a little bit more decent for you know, professional pilots to sit and hang out while they're waiting for whoever they ferried over here, is pretty important, because what we don't want is people touching down and one of a couple things happening. They either have to have a long wait here and they don't want to hang out and do nothing for 7 hours, or alternatively, if it's a really expensive aircraft, we don't really have a lot of opportunity for them to have somewhere to put their aircraft inside. And so that's another one, is you know, having at least some limited opportunity for folks that have really expensive large jets that want to, you know, stay for a couple of days or for however long, to be able to be inside and have their very expensive aircraft protected from elements. Yeah.
Has anybody ever brought up the idea of having an airport car, a courtesy car?
Yeah.
Like an old police car, old city car, is what they do at a lot of airports. And people that fly in, especially the guys that are coming in with jets and turboprops or whatever, and they've got, you know, a couple of hours to kill, they want to get lunch. I mean, I've taken, you know, once I just ran into some guys like, well, I'll take you down there, but I'm leaving the area, so you'll have to plan right back.
Yeah. We haven't had that discussion, but it might simply be that a lot of times what at least I've heard is that, with Uber, a lot of the folks are sort of using that service. I mean, that said, be open certainly to that. We want to find some way, whatever ways we can do that are not super expensive to make it, comfortable for folks that are here so that maybe they come back again. Let's go here and then they'll come around. Yeah, hi.
This is kind of tangential, but during the summer, you guys had the movie night out here.
Yeah.
And then that was a lot of fun. And
yeah.
I would advocate again doing more of that.
So thank you over there to the man in the fedora, Richard Pearl, who was the leader in saying, he came to my office one day, and usually when he comes in to talk, he's the treasurer for the city, so usually it's to talk about some sort of financial matter. But this time it was, hey, we used to do this airport open house, and then it went away. Let's do it again. And so really on his back, we did the first year, did it again. This last year I think was pretty successful, did it again. And Rich came and said to me, look, we need to keep this going, but I can't do it by myself anymore. And of course the EAA has done a ton to make that happen. But this year, Chamber of Commerce has jumped in, and we're going to be setting aside some more resources so that we can maybe step it up even a notch beyond that. So we're going to do movie night again. We're working on the idea of maybe doing a concert too as part of that weekend out here. And
aviation related.
Of course, yeah. I don't know. There's probably some, Maverick band or something that we could get. And then we're looking into some more hot air balloon stuff and some other cool things that might just attract people to come out here. I was actually really excited that it ended up turning out so well because I thought that it was a possibility that some of the folks that maybe don't like that attention out here at the airport, I'd rather just not have it at all. There's too many people, I want to do my thing. But most of the feedback I've got is, hey, we really like it. It brings a lot of attention and the community really enjoys it. I bring my kids out here and they love to run around and learn. And it's led to a number of other things that have been really cool. For example, Jessup Aviation now has a presence out here, and Jessup is way into Lincoln at the moment. There's all kinds of discussions about their burgeoning aviation program that they have started and creating a place here where they can, teach kids I guess they're not kids, it's college students to fly and eventually get, the goal is to get their commercial pilot's license and help plug that hole that we're experiencing now already of commercial pilots not being available for hire. Okay, and there was yeah.
Just make an observation. I've been with the airport probably since 2010. We've been involved in putting on the air events out here everywhere. Just open house with full walking air show out here. They've all been successful. I think Bob and Terry, Mark, Tony K. We put so much into it. The reality is we have to fight the city every single damn year to make it happen. This is the first time last year that the city was a partner with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our kind of philosophy, I guess, is what's the point of having an airport if, no offense, but if it's only you that are enjoying it, right? You don't really make it, the people, because here's the thing. Do you recall there was a certain person years ago that made a comment about selling the airport on Craigslist? Anybody remember that? Okay, first of all, just to dispense with that, we can't sell the airport. For a variety of legal reasons. Secondly, who'd buy it? Third, the airport, they're not making new airports, right? So it hasn't been viewed as an asset by the larger community because they don't understand it. That's it. So one way to help them understand it is to get them out here and really see it. And then all of a sudden, hey, maybe somebody wants to learn how to become a pilot. I mean, I can't imagine all of you grew up in aviation families. Some of you probably just got a passion for it and followed it. So that's kind of what we're hoping happens when we do those events.
How many people here, just out of curiosity, on that comment, how many people grew up with an aviation connection, family connection?
Yeah, how many people grew up with an aviation family connection? Oh. Okay, yeah.
I'm just gonna make a
Hey,
comment
Scott.
that the community will support the airport, I think, if they understand the economic impact. The economic impact will continue to increase, particularly if we have more corporate aircraft coming in here with either a corporate base here, that's why the airplane is here, or supporting the casino or whatever.
Yep.
And I know it's a chicken and egg thing, but the FBO is really something that's needed here.
Yep.
I flew professionally for quite a while, corporate, and this is an airport we would not come into because there's no FBO.
Right.
And until that happens, I think probably half the traffic that would come here is not coming here. The big jets that would pay a lot of money for fuel.
Yep.
The only other question I had was, are we getting any noise complaints now from the new development here?
Yes. No.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, the new development over there in the southeast of
Yeah, so let me just address, Scott brought up a number of things that won't keep you here all day, but here, I'm going to tell you a really quick story that is sort of an allegory for the airport. There's some residents in Sun City that will call, and everywhere in town for that matter, that will call and complain about the train noise, when they cross through the things. And they say, what can we do to get rid of the honking trains? And the answer to that question is that, so as you know, that the train is required to blow their horn through every intersection a certain number of times. It's the law, right? You can create these things called quiet zones where they basically put up these devices that try to funnel the sound into just the area of the intersection so it doesn't bleed either way. But it costs probably about $250,000 an intersection at the minimum. And the city then takes on significant liability if there's ever a fatality or a serious accident, right? So we just don't want to do it. Separately of that, though, there's a philosophy, I think, held by most of the city council and the community, is that the railroad existed here before Lincoln existed here. And so I personally am not a big fan of folks coming into a community or a culture and trying to change the nature of it.
Yeah.
Just because they don't like it, right? If you don't like train noise when you buy your house, say, it might be pretty loud, let's move up to the middle of nowhere in the mountains, and then you don't have to deal with train noise, right? So it's choices. Same for the airport. We get calls, Rich gets calls from Foskett all the time. Just so you know, I live on the very, very end of 3rd Street, so I see all of you flying over my backyard, and I actually think it's really cool. My kids love it, we enjoy it. It doesn't bother me in the least, and even if it did, guess what? After 6 months, I probably wouldn't even hear or see it anymore because you just get used to it. So we get those complaints, but we tell them almost the same thing. Look, the airport's been here a really long time before your homes were built, and so it will continue to be here, into the future. And that's one thing. Now, look, if we got complaints that, hey, someone's flying way too low over homes or doing some sort of unsafe aerial maneuvers over there, then that's another thing. But in terms of just kind of routine, I believe if you purchase a home that's in the airport overflight zone, it's probably into disclosure paperwork, and so you most likely didn't read that. So
That's in the California Constitution.
yeah, you gotta. So if you get any complaints, just send them our way. We're pretty used to that kind of stuff. Yeah, Bruce.
Let me tell you a quick story.
Yeah.
About airport awareness. Back about 5 years ago, I was at one of the airport committee meetings when I flew over the road. And this little old lady gets up there and she kind of reads her little speech and they're complaining about airport noise. Me being a tenant here, we're sensitive. We want to know who's making the noise. Well, Jennifer knew who it was. It was an isolated case. The skydivers, where they climbed out full power. And this lady said, on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, they're flying over my house. And she was an isolated case. So I jumped in and said, what? Have you ever been to the airport? No. Let me give you a tour of the airport. So 3 months later, she calls me. She and her elderly brother came out, and I talked to everybody that was normally here and said, now look, don't be jerks, I'm going to drive this. So I spent about 45 minutes with Claire and showed her the businesses that are here, and this business employs 10 people, and this business employs 20 people, and this business does this. And it's like, wow. Then I talked to her about the airport traffic pattern. And now here's how they do this. And so she went back and she told all of her neighbors how cool the airport was. So it went from a complaint to back around. And then the next airport committee meeting, a couple of committee members lived in Lincoln Hills and cities. What did you tell Clinton? I said, gave her a tour. But it was the airport awareness. All of a sudden she was an ally of us with her brother, as opposed to being a
Yeah. It's a good example for why the open house and just sort of making this it's a public place. So and to that point, one thing I didn't get a chance to address is Scott brought up that is really important that I wanted to just leave you with is the 84 acres across the street on Flightline. That property was part of the total deed that was given to the city for the airport, well, way back whenever it was. And what we've learned is that that land is, since it's not within the bounds of the airport, it's not really part of this airport plan, is city property to kind of do what we will with. That property is the only significant piece, certainly of city-owned land, that has real job creation opportunities. And so for a long time, for forever, it's sat vacant, right? Right now, we're in the middle of marketing it out to job producing kind of light industrial type of business, preferably not warehouse. Yeah. Things that create things and employ people. And what we've decided, on the advice of a lot of people that know more about this than me, is to really lean into aviation related business there, because it's right across the street from an airport that almost never exists anywhere, and we've received lots of interest. And so we're going to have to be a little picky and choosy, because again, one of those things you can only get right once. But we've had businesses, they don't tell you when someone approaches you, you don't know what business it is. It could be Amazon, could be, who knows. But there's been a number of R&D type uses that have contacted us that they have a list of things they want, and one of the things is we need to be within, less than a quarter mile from a general aviation airport. And so my goal, I hope, in the next couple of years is to get some kind of deal in place where we either lease or sell that land to a business that can contribute to the airport too, because it's really our one opportunity to do so. I'll go here and here. Yep.
Bruce's story about, did you say it was Claire?
Claire.
I read a similar story in the EA magazine years ago, and I think there's an untapped opportunity there, maybe in certain cases where, those people that are complaining about the noise could be directed to come to an airport open house day like that we've had, or maybe somebody from EA could volunteer, to do the same thing Bruce did. I think there's a lot of opportunity there to sort of like change opinions.
Yep.
The story that I read was a guy's neighbor. I think he had a small strip on his property, and the guy's neighbor was kind of like, I don't know, like this plane blank thing. And then he gave the guy a ride, and like in a year or two later, the guy's buying an airplane.
Yeah.
I heard rumors that Gulfstream was doing a proposal to build something through the rumor mill from the city of Lincoln, that they wanted to connect through pass-through gate, and the city said no, and Gulfstream said, okay, we'll walk.
It could be. It would have predated me, because if you get a call from a corporation like that, look, what you're talking about is economic development, right? And when you're a Lincoln or pick really any of the communities around here, maybe outside of Roseville, who have some unique advantages that we don't, you can't be that choosy. If you have a major corporation, especially one that would line up with your airport, you say yes, 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 yes. If they want me to give them a piggyback ride around city, I will. That honestly, because we don't have the kinds of resources that like a San Jose might have to be able to negotiate something. So you kind of have to be either faster than those other communities or more flexible. And if you're not those things, it's a competitive marketplace for cities too. And I think we had one back here, sir. Did you have? Oh, okay. Yeah.
One more thing, I can't remember if I got the story right, but when I pay property tax on the aircraft itself, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's associated on the bills with schools in the area where I live. It's not where the airplane is, it's not where the aircraft, I live in Roseville. That just seems intuitively wrong. I don't know if the money is really going there, but it seems like the money should go to the airport. Like, there should be a way to capture that and say, look, this tax on an airplane.
Yeah.
It's based at Lincoln. It should go to the Lincoln Airport.
So you're talking about possessory interest tax?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
So, personal, yeah. So, I agree with you. And, to be frank with you, there's zero I can do about that. Real quickly, if you own either real property or personal property and you pay tax, just so you know, on average, the city of Lincoln and the county split about 30 cents of that. That means that for every dollar you pay, 30 cents of it either goes, the city and county split it. And typically, depending on the deal, the city gets 15 cents, maybe 10 cents on the dollar. So the vast majority of property tax goes to the school, over 55%. And it's been a gripe for a really long time, and it's one of the ways that the state has sort of shifted the cost of education to the localities versus, look, I could talk about for hours, but it's very frustrating to us too, because when you're paying that bill, it's only a teeny tiny portion of it is actually going towards the service you're receiving here at the airport. So there is an equity there for sure.
Just one last thing for me and I'll shut up. I just wanted to say a huge thanks to Richard.
Yeah.
This guy's out here all the freaking time.
Yeah.
I mean, I've come in at 2 a.m. I've come in hella early, hella late. He's always out here working. He's diligent.
Yeah.
He's awesome. You have a gem there, and I just really want to say thanks, Richard.
Hey, Richard. Yeah, he's a really good, but besides the fact that he's just a nice person and a really great employee, he also puts up with me coming out here with harebrained ideas that he knows are bullshit and allows me to say them anyway. I've seen him squirm a few times as I've been standing up here. Anybody have anything else? If you don't, I'll just give it verbally so it'll be on the thing, and I'm also on the website, but my email is Sean, sean.scully@lincolnca.gov. We'll send out all of our emails to Bruce and Scott, and please contact us. And if you do email me and you don't get an immediate response back, it's not because I don't want to respond, it's because I'm working through other things, but we will get to everybody, I promise. So, and on the smaller kind of maintenance related things, the light and some other things, we'll circle back with everybody on those too. But thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, so thank you to Sean and Matthew and Rich for coming out to speak to us today, and this has been a great opportunity, and thank you guys very much for coming out.
Yeah.